Prero with Counsel and Arnold and Porter's Environmental Practice Group. I'm here today speaking with Doug Troutman, General Counsel at the American Cleaning Institute. The American Cleaning Institute is the trade association dedicated to advancing public understanding of the safety and benefits of cleaning products and protecting the ability of its members to formulate products that best meet consumer needs. Doug has decades of government affairs experience, including as an assistant to Senator Arlen Specter, and has worked in government affairs positions for the National Electrical Manufacturers Association and Underwriters Laboratories. Doug is known for being a strategic thinker who hones in on the issues of utmost importance to his members, and he tirelessly works to bring the needed results to fruition. I've worked with Doug for over a decade. I appreciate his willingness to collaborate and his good humor. So, Doug, welcome.
Thanks, Judah. It's great to see you.
Thanks, and I'm glad you're here. So let's just kick this off right away. You've been in this town in D.C. for quite some time, and you started your career working on the Hill. So what attracted you to that line of work?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity. I want to say thanks to Arnold and Porter and to you, Judah, for the invitation, and also to my members and the American Cleaning Institute. I think your intro was really solid, so nothing to add there. And really thankful to serve a great team of member companies, suppliers and formulators, and also just be engaged here for a number of years on these types of things. And to your question, I really was fascinated coming out of college, which was a little while ago, but we'll leave that to the LinkedIn page. So just working on the Hill and watching the intersection of business, policy, public policy issues, and things like that. So as a native Pennsylvanian, following all four Philadelphia sports teams outside of Philadelphia, born and raised, it was a great opportunity and really thankful for that opportunity to get started. So just, I think as a lot of people get going on the Hill, just the world comes through your door. And, you know, the opportunity to be a part of that was really, really formative.
So you just mentioned interest in public policy issues. So were there specific ones in particular that interested you, or for that matter, still interest you, and why was that the case?
I would say learning about tax and trade and general business issues. But then Senator Specter at the time, senior member of the Judiciary Committee and an appropriator, and that exposure and experience of how authorizing and appropriations activities really became a formative underpinning for helping to understand how to do my actually current job a lot better.
So you just mentioned some pretty heavy, substantial areas. And so, after working on the Hill for a bit, you switched to law. So, what inspired you to go to law school? Was it just a continuation of what you were doing, or did you view it as like a bit of a shift?
Yeah. Just watching really the expertise of a lot of lawyers I was exposed to in the regulatory and legislative space. And it's such a different type of practice than a traditional litigation firm that you might find in like Philadelphia or New York. But the regulatory and legal aspects of the law really is what attracted me.
And I can relate to that a bit. As you know, I've been involved heavily in the legislative and regulatory space for a while, so I can appreciate that. Another commonality that we have is that you spent a significant amount of your career in the trade association space. In fact, I think most of it. So what about the trade association environment did you find attractive? And apparently you still do, because you're still there.
Very well put, Judah. Appreciate it. So as I stopped and thought about it, a trade association plugs in at all levels. And I think a firm can also do that. But from the executive level to like where you put a board member on in the most senior level of a company, all the way down to line workers who actually put the product together and anybody else who comes along and supports them, there's a place most often for the business types and the science types, the legal, the GA, and the finance types to really plug into a trade and affect the direction of how their industry goes. I operate by, I think, three key principles. Maximum achievable consensus. I think a common cut on some trade associations is lowest common denominator. I don't think that's fair, and I don't think that's accurate. because if you're really working to draw out your members and get them engaged, you're going to get the maximum achievable consensus that you can get. The plug-in level at that middle level, I guess, would be the second. And then third, what can we do that we can prioritize and constantly do better? And I'm very fortunate in our current leadership at ACI and have seen it through other trades to really help the members focus and drive an agenda forward with strategy, but then to prioritize what they want to work on.
I can appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I bet.
I've seen both of those, the consensus building and the lowest common denominator. So
I think we both have,
yes.
right? And when it works, it's great. And when you know it's not working, you're like, okay, what can we do here?
So what attracted you to ACI, or then it was SDA, and knowing that it was really a different focus from what you had been working with previously?
In 2010, we changed out to the from the Soap and Detergent Association to American Cleaning Institute, as you rightly pointed out. And really, that was a way to help us identify with the full value of the cleaning product chain, from suppliers to formulators. And really, ACI, if you think of a house where in your basement, in your laundry room, or in your under your sink in your kitchen, other trades represent things that are in your garage or your basement. If it goes in your hair, your face, or your skin, or is behind your vanity, that's another trade. But uniquely, we really integrate a lot with American Chemistry Council for the raw chemical manufacturers, and then organizations like retail or consumer brands or those types, the old GMA, to really supply up the value chain into the grocery space and consumer space. But we also have institutional, industrial products, commercial product formulators as well. But really, back to your question, I think ACI is not a standard setter, but just the exposure, and that was fine. I was able to bring that expertise and knowledge to really help expand my practice and professional experience, both in the GA and the legal side, and really understanding how standards work and how that affects commerce became a good value add.
So I have the opportunity to work with you and your members all the time, but if you would like
We
to
are very fortunate for that,
thank you.
Shudo.
If you'd like to educate some of our listeners about who are your members, those high profile names that I'm sure they recognize, and then the issues that they confront and that you work on before them, what type of issues do you find yourself dealing with all the time?
Yeah, and help me out in case, there's some other aspects here that I may not get to. So the major formulators would be everything that a consumer would see down their grocery aisle or Target or any of their major retailers or Walmart or the like, even on Amazon that you can buy online. So Clorox, SCJ, Henkel Products, Procter & Gamble, all of the major formulated brands, Colgate, Palmolive, and the like. So, and then also the raw chemical manufacturers, Dow, DuPont, BASF, Croda, all of those step in. Anybody who actually supplies like a surfactant or a fragrance or another type of package to help deliver the product to market, that's who we represent. So it's the full cleaning product value chain here in the U.S., and then we obviously partner with global partners as well.
Now, one area where I have a particular interest, because I came from the trade association space, and you're working there now, is as a general counsel of a trade association, what do you value most from your outside counsel? What do you appreciate from an outside counsel, and what do you look for in an outside counsel? I mean, I was there and I've seen it from both sides, but it's always worth hearing it again and making sure that we don't forget.
Well, help me out here. And if you're like, no, I don't agree with that answer, Doug,
Well, let's hear it first.
Yeah. I like that. I think, a good sense of humor and a good, straight shot on, hey, here's the pros and cons, and here's some thinking to help inform your decision making, is something I really value from outside counsel. And you and Larry and the team have really always been able to meet us wherever we're at, to be able to walk us through if we've got a thorny problem, or even some straightforward things, to confirm a path forward, or to say, you may want to think about a couple of these factors. And we may not always like the answer or understand it, but it's something I say to a lot of colleagues, and I think you guys would embrace this. I may not be able to tell you everything you want to know, but I'll tell you everything I know you need to know. And that's something I think where counsel can meet the business partner is something really valuable.
Thank you. I'll tell you one thing that I always recognized or I felt was important when I was in the trade association world and that we valued from our outside counsel is when the outside counsel recognized what we knew and that you're a trade association, you're representing members in a certain space, and there should be a presumption that when dealing with regulators or certain products that there's a certain knowledge base that the trade association is going to have, and you don't want to appear either condescending or just not knowledgeable of how much a trade association really knows within the space that they work.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think you guys are good about that. The ability to converse and say, am I making sense here? Did I say too much? Did I say too little? Are you following me? Those types of things, those types of clarifying questions, and to draw people out, very critical.
Okay, so we are definitely here to talk about chemicals today.
Oh, man.
We had to get there at some point.
Let's go.
So as your members make cleaning products, there's chemicals in those. And if I had to guess, I would say that one of the most significant challenges that your members face these days in the chemical regulatory world has to do with getting new chemicals approvals. So if I guessed right, why is that the case?
Yeah, that's right. Okay. No, right on. And the idea of speeding and innovation to market is critical, not just because look, there's the baseline, market values analysis of that. You've invested, the company's taken a lot of time to develop capital, invest against an idea, and they want to see a return on that investment. But then, comprehensively, as part of the business of this, it's speaking in the cleaning product development space, it's everything from sustainability to making a product better and like serving the consumer, but then the global interest better as well, for longevity and to make sure, you've really innovated so that you can find a greener or more sustainable chemistry, not only from the financial investment aspect, which is bread and butter to an industry. We get that. But the comprehensive nature of really investing in the marketplace and global competitiveness has to take all of these types of factors into consideration. Sustainability, resources, supply chain disruptions, and the ability to, if a chemical is innovated, and could be something that could transform the market, we'd like to see that get to market as soon as possible. And I think there's some real questions about that. And we're here to try and keep working on making sure those questions go away.
So a regulator sort of slowing things down is not particularly helpful.
Not based on what I know, no.
So the American Alliance for Innovation is a coalition of many different trade associations that, going back a number of years, got together in support of TSCA reform, preceding the Lautenberg Act. And I know AAI was a member. So from ACI's perspective, were you happy with what happened with the Lautenberg Act and the provisions that were in there? And do you think that perhaps there could be some tweaks or even maybe large changes that?
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from. And let me just go back to a quick touch base on a kind of line of discussion we were just having. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when a regulator says no to something or doesn't understand, I think we both draw in our legal and trade association work to be able to help us understand, okay, where's that regulator at? Why is he or she there? What are they not understanding or need to be understanding to get them to an understanding of how that chemical needs to be brought to the marketplace. And part of that's, sheer, expertise or time investment that regulator may have, but also it's just an understanding of how the law is supposed to work as well, based on best practice and how going into your question, the Lautenberg amendments from 2017, ACI was a strong supporter of that, a leader of the coalition for AAI, working very closely with ACC and working intensely, to help draft those amendments so a regulator would understand how to implement them. So I think going back to really, if you look from all the sections, 3, 4, 5, 14, CBI, all of those, and you look at that, going back to 5 and understanding on the PMN process, the manufacturing notice, and that speed to market still is a critical innovative piece of what we do and something we'd like to continue to see work well.
I've heard from folks in some other trades that when looking at the statute, Congress made certain decisions, based on negotiations with all the stakeholders, and for example, putting deadlines. Now there's a recognition that, agencies can only do so much. If they were given an unlimited amount of time, then, maybe the type of evaluation or a risk assessment they could do could just be incredibly thorough and taking all the information. But, Congress has recognized that if you have an agency that's responsible for oversight, let's say of safety of chemicals, well, they have work that they got to do. And so therefore you put in a deadline. And so the really what the agency is supposed to do is understand that deadline and what is the best that we can do within that period of time.
Agreed. And then also you have to analyze this from the actual, the history of what the section meant to do. Plus we're talking about pre-manufacturer notice, not pre-market approval. And, the push and pull on the policy as to what that should look like, I respect that. But one of the key underpinnings of TSCA reform was, yes, to build consumer confidence in the safety of chemicals and get them through a reasonable EPA process and get them onto market, and to make sure that the regulator had all the data that they needed or was able to get it, but also in turn there with the fees that were assigned, for new chemicals, and also the understanding that you were to move these forward at a reasonable pace. And I think there's a bit of a gap there right now that needs to be bridged. I wouldn't say I have all the answers on how to do that, but I know how it used to work, and that industry and I think the consumer and a lot of folks were very comfortable with it, with some questions, but I think it could work a little bit better where we're at now.
We've been focusing in our conversation to now on the priorities for ACI at a federal level and the obstacles that your members are having or the concerns that they have. But it's clear that a lot of what happens in chemical regulatory world is not confined just to the EPA, and that states are incredibly active when it comes to chemical regulatory laws, whether it be labeling, content restriction, ingredient disclosure. So do your members feel that there is a real challenge with state compliance and just the barrage of new laws that they are facing every year?
Yeah, we really do. And it's not only that, but this podcast could keep going on and talk global as well, and all the engagement that we have with our partners. But ACI is really involved in any state that, I'll talk geographic, but also politically, any state that's truly blue or purple. So if a heavily Democratic controlled state has a big regulatory agency or, a singular blue legislature, and geographically, if it has a big waterway or it's a coastal state, we're probably there. So that would be anything on the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington, Minnesota, New York. And I'm not talking out of school. These are all publicly known things based on our filings and things like that. But a lot of the northeastern states, upper Midwest, and the coastal West. So the Southwest and Southeast, not as much, partially geographic, but mainly politically. They're pretty balanced, where they don't have a lot of water issues. They have different types of water issues for ag or things like that. So, and for years, remember, as you well know, ACI product categories, it's a lot of down the drain product. So whatever affects a waterway or water quality and where that water gets reused in an ag aspect or in a home or wherever or in other manufacturing. We'd like to know where ingredients go, but also the quality of the water as it goes back into manufacturing. And that's something I think we'll probably be looking at in years to come.
On the state regulatory front, aside from, I would say, the issues that I discussed, which are more global in nature, for example, like product labeling, and that you might differ from state to state, it sounds like there's clearly, to some degree, a geographic element. If you're looking at waterways or in discharges in areas that are a lot more sensitive to the ability to use water or how water gets disposed of, so there could be uniquely geographic specific.
Exactly. Yeah. So anything down the Mississippi, or what is it? Minnesota is known as a lake state, right? So lots of water quality issues up there. And then it depends on whether the state legislature or the regulatory body has a history of having to deal with some of these issues. New Jersey, for years and years, ACI, then the SDA, had a legacy activity on phosphate regulation. And now it's, you rightly point out, product labeling and information that's available to the consumer, whether on the adhesive label that goes on a plastic bottle, all the way to now how you're using a URL code or something online that you're able to get through your smartphone. And even just in my practice area and experience watching that transformation, I'm old enough to remember when I first saw the internet and saw email, and now to see it being used with the generative AI technology, which we're just starting to explore, about how all of that has transitioned, but then how the consumer is using their devices to be able to stay up to speed on things that's really the innovations which are coming in the future.
We discussed some regulation, and you've also touched on the importance of issues such as sustainability to your members.
Right.
And I know from working with you that it's clear that ACI isn't just focused on regulatory compliance. There is EPA has a Safer Choice program, and ACI has been a regular participant, received awards as a partner for many years. And this is a completely voluntary program. There's EPA doesn't require participation. So I think it's clear that ACI sees value in participating. And so, what is the value? What draws the ACI to want to participate with Safer Choice, encouraging its members to participate? And are there any other voluntary efforts that ACI is engaged in?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question, and really kudos and champion our tech team at ACI. I think as your listeners get to explore, if they're Googling ACI right now, cleaninginstitute.org, we're fundamentally a science and tech type of trade. So lots of research in those types of work. And my colleague Jim Kim and Kathy Stanton and Ryan Heisler are highly involved with EPA on a number of activities, and now a relatively new teammate, Darius Stanton, on lots of EPA-related activities, all and up and down the value chain. But my colleague Kathy, really highly engaged with the EPA Safer Choice program, and a respected colleague and an expert on lots of science advisory work that's done at TSCA, in the TSCA realm. But really, we see Clive Davies and their work there at Safer Choice as really something that partners with us to drive innovations in the marketplace. We really appreciate the work that they do there, and have been highly engaged with it for a number of years, and recognize as a Safer Choice partner as we appreciate you identifying. But I think in the years to come, we'll continue to be involved there, and continue to look across the marketplace for opportunities to really drive partnerships.
So your members, I would guess, are just looking for those opportunities to be able to demonstrate that to the consumer that they care about the products they're manufacturing. They're looking for an enhanced safety profile. They're looking for ensuring that the products are sustainable. and that they're, whether it's, water conservation, energy conservation, that these are all principles that your member companies stand for.
Yeah, and even harkening back to time when I worked for the electrical manufacturers, watching the advent of the EPA Energy Star program and the cooperation between EPA and DOE and those developments. I think you see this in a lot of different industry categories, and I would defer to your expertise on where you saw things at ACC and other chemicals. But really, I watch in awe with what Safer Choice is able to do, and the market lead that they're enabling us to have as well.
At this point in time, EPA is moving full steam ahead with every other day they're coming out with, or it's not that frequent, but it seems like it anyways, that with new risk evaluations or risk management rules. And it's clear that there's a flurry of regulatory activity which is expected from the passage of the Lautenberg amendments, and it's just a natural progression of implementation. What words of advice can you offer to companies that are looking to innovate, they're looking to grow in the marketplace, and they're just trying to figure out what they need to do to position themselves to best meet the challenge that's coming to them by all these new rules that are coming out?
Yeah, and I think you've helped me understand this, and I think the team here, but also you would probably appreciate this. I think you got to think of it as a long game, and you got to respect the regulator. And something that we've also, I think, the administration changes probably every 4 years or every 2 years with various levels of AAs and administrative. Did I have that right? Administrative assistants, administrators. I'm using too many industry terms, right? So, or the EPA administrator. Those things change, right? So the constant engagement and communication with the regulator. And then there's a lot of partnership within the industry to make sure, a consistent message goes into the regulator. And to also think long-term, it may not be the agency you're dealing with today right in front of you, July 2023, but think July 2030, or July 2040, and start to think about the long term. And that's why we often harken back to longer term 30,000 foot principles of risk management and understanding, the concept and theory of risk, and, steering clear of, really deleterious principles like the precautionary principle, or things that would really chill innovation or halt that speed to market. Those are the types of, and we've learned this in law school too, there are all types of theories of how, laws get and can analyzed and interpreted. But it's true in science too, right? There's hard facts, but there's also theories of how you approach them. And I think that longer term over, a strategic approach of remaining engaging with others, and a lot of, cordial respect is really critical this day and age.
Well, we appreciate that we're able to stay engaged with you and the American Cleaning Institute. We value that relationship, and I hope we can continue working together for quite a while. I mean, we've been doing it for this long, and we've got a good thing running. Thank you for joining me here today, and I definitely appreciated the opportunity to chat a little bit and hear about your background and your advice for others in the marketplace these days.
It's been a real pleasure, Judah, and I'm sorry as dads, we didn't get to share some dad jokes at the end of this.
My kids are thankful for that.
Well, mine are too, but maybe that'll attract more listeners in the future.
Well, if listeners want to hear more about our environmental practice group, you can visit our website at arnoldporter.com. Thanks for listening.